Okay, so let's get into the story behind a book that really you couldn't ignore over the last decade, 12 Rules for Life. We're going to break down how a simple online post completely blew up into a global phenomenon, and we'll dig into the core ideas that got it all started. It all kicked off with this question, right here on the website Quora. Back in 2012, the psychologist Jordan Peterson said he was just procrastinating, really, and decided to post an answer. But he didn't just give one simple reply. No, he created a whole list of rules for living. And the response? It was immediate and, frankly, overwhelming. That single answer has been viewed by over 120,000 people. I mean, on a site with millions of answers, that puts his list in the top 99.9th percentile. He had clearly struck a chord. Readers were leaving comments just like this one, and the enthusiasm wasn't just online. His own students started coming up to him wanting to talk about the list. I mean, this was basically market research happening in real time, and it was showing him that these ideas were connecting with people on a really deep level. Now, to really get what these rules are all about, we kind of have to understand where the author is coming from. And that starts with his really deep concern about the dangers of rigid, simple-minded belief systems, what he calls ideologies. So get this, people who visited his home were often kind of shocked to find it decorated like this, filled with original Soviet propaganda art. We're talking wall-to-wall paintings of Lenin and other communists, I mean, even on the ceilings. But this wasn't because he had any sympathy for the regime, no. It was for the exact opposite reason. You see, for him, the art was a constant, haunting reminder of what humanity is capable of, all the evil we can do in the name of good. It was this daily confrontation with the horror that can be unleashed when people cling too tightly to a vision of a perfect future and decide that any means are justified to get there. And this is how the book frames ideology. It basically says, these systems are dangerous because they give you these overly simple black and white answers for life's incredibly complex problems. They try to swap out the richness of real wisdom and ancient stories for a very narrow, I already know everything point of view. So, if the world isn't just a simple battle between good and evil ideologies, then what is it? Well, the book offers up a totally different way to look at things. It suggests that our ancestors saw the world not as a place of, things, but as a drama playing out between two fundamental forces. And those forces are order and chaos. Think about it. Order is the world of structure, security, everything we know and understand. Our jobs, our traditions, our plans. And chaos? That's the great unknown. It's where all the potential and novelty is, but it's also where danger is hiding. In a lot of ancient symbolic systems, you'll see these represented as the masculine and the feminine. But here's the really interesting part, the core idea. The book argues that real meaning in life isn't found in the total safety of order or in the wild, untamed nature of chaos. No, it's found on the razor's edge, right between them, walking that border. That's how you stay on the path of life. And this isn't some brand new idea. This draws heavily on ancient wisdom, like the Taoist concept of the way. Life is framed as this constant, delicate balancing act, right? You need enough order so you don't just fall apart into chaos, but you need enough chaos so you can grow and learn and adapt to new things. And this idea of navigating a world of order and hierarchy, well, it runs incredibly deep. So deep, in fact, that the book uses a kind of strange example to illustrate it: lobsters. Yeah, you heard me right, lobsters. But stick with me, there's a really profound point here about just how ancient our social wiring really is. So scientists study lobsters because their nervous systems are pretty simple and easy to map out, and what they find is just fascinating. Lobsters fight for territory and status, and their posture, whether they stand up tall and confident or kind of slump in defeat, that's governed by brain chemicals that are super similar to the serotonin in our own brains. The whole point is that the machinery inside us for navigating social hierarchies is ancient, like hundreds of millions of years old. So, how does all of this, the dance between order and chaos, our ancient wiring, how does it all build toward the book's central idea? Well, given all this complexity, how is a person supposed to act? The book's answer is very, very firm. And look, the book uses the word rules very intentionally. It's not 12 guidelines or 12 friendly suggestions. The argument is that personal responsibility isn't just a nice idea. It's an absolute necessity if you want to navigate the chaos of life. Period. And here's the crucial part, maybe the most surprising part of this whole story.
Why did this message connect with so many people? The book suggests that a lot of young people, maybe raised in these hyper-protective environments, felt like they were being underestimated. They were actually hungry for a message that told them they had the strength and, yes, the responsibility to face life's challenges head-on.
So all of these ideas, the danger of ideology, the balance of order and chaos, the absolute necessity of responsibility, they all come together in the book's single most famous piece of advice. And there it is. This is the practical takeaway. Before you go out there and try to fix the immense, complicated problems of the world, start with yourself. Clean your room, organize your schedule, make peace with your family, fix the things that are actually concretely within your control. That is how you start to bring a little bit of order to all the chaos. And this isn't about ignoring the world's problems, not at all. It's about building the strength to actually face them effectively. The book often brings up the psychologist Carl Jung, and this quote just perfectly captures the idea. Real growth, real strength, requires you to be willing to confront the difficult, the dark, and the chaotic parts of yourself and of life. So in the end, the antidote to chaos the book talks about isn't some grand top-down solution. It's personal. It's a call to ditch the simple ideologies and instead take up the really difficult but meaningful responsibility of putting your own life in order, one small, deliberate action at a time. And it kind of leaves us all with a question to think about. What's one small piece of chaos in your own life that you could confront today?